All right, everybody, so let's finish up this timeline. And just to review, we're making this geologic timeline showing the events as we know them for the formation of the Earth to present time. And we drew a line 46 centimeters long. One end of the line represented the formation of the Earth. Here are the scales that we're using. 10 centimeters equals 1 billion years, or 1 centimeter equals 100 million. Same thing, either way you look at it. 90% of Earth history is Precambrian time, and we really don't know too much about Precambrian time, which is kind of interesting. And toward the end of the last video, we were really focusing on this last 10% here, and we plotted the Paleozoic era, the Cambrian, the Ordovician, Silurian, Carboniferous, and the Permian period. That is all Paleozoic era, old time. Paleo means old. What we'll do today is plot the Mesozoic and Cenozoic time periods. And as you could imagine, things are going to get pretty tight because we're going to squash in close to 300 million years in this last inch. So now we start to just know a lot more because we're talking about more recent history. But this represents the Paleozoic. At the end of the Paleozoic, at the end of the Permian, we had a large mass extinction. One of the greatest mass extinctions of all time, even more so than the extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs. In this mass extinction event, it's believed 90% of all life disappeared. Greatest mass extinction event ever discovered in the fossil record. It's believed to have some connection to do with large amounts of volcanic eruptions taking place at the same time. And it could be that all of that volcanic ash blocked the sun and caused the Earth to get very cold. It's also possible that the volcanic eruptions released tremendous amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, creating a runaway greenhouse effect and causing Earth to get very warm. It's also quite possible that it was a combination of both. And we had a freezing period, and then following that, a warming period. Those are all theories, though. But we are confident in this number. 90% of all life forms vanished at the end of the Permian. This mass extinction doesn't get as much attention as the one that wiped out the dinosaurs because, well, dinosaurs are fascinating and really interesting. Most of these creatures were invertebrates, things like trilobites and eurypterids and so on. They're not as exciting maybe. Anyway, let's keep going. So here's the Permian. The next time period we'll plot is the Triassic. The Permian ended at 251 million years ago, and it ended. The Permian ended, and the Triassic began at the same time. The Triassic ends at using the side. The Triassic ends at 200 million years ago, which puts us at 2 centimeters. So this is Triassic. We have our earliest dinosaurs. So our earliest dinosaurs evolved during the Triassic. The Triassic ends 200 million years ago, so I'm going to write that in. And then our next time period is the one that everybody knows of, the Jurassic. And the Jurassic ended 146 million years ago. So now I'm going to do 1.46. Oops, no, 1.46 would put me about here. Okay, so that would be Jurassic. This is really the age of the dinosaur now. And then lastly, we have the Cretaceous. This is the last time period that dinosaurs lived. And the Cretaceous ends at 65.5, which would be 0.65, which puts me about here. And that would be Cretaceous. I'm going to write it at the top this time. So that's the Cretaceous. The Cretaceous ends 65.5 million years ago. And this represents the Mesozoic. Mesozoic, or Meso means middle. So now we're talking about middle because we have Paleo being old, Meso middle, and then we have our recent time, which would be the Cenozoic. Now we're just going to write in Cenozoic era because, as you can see, it would be very, very hard to fit in this one little bit of space all of these different periods, the Paleogene, Neogene, Quaternary. We just don't have much room to work with. We could probably do it, but it would be pretty tight. But the Cenozoic would be things that are more familiar to you. This would be the rise of mammals. You know, something that I think would be interesting to put on here would be when humans first came onto the scene. And humans and human-like species like Neanderthal and Australopithecus and early human species probably coexisted together, possibly even hunting each other, which is an interesting idea in itself. But humans have been around 1.8 million years. I mean, I can't even draw that, really. You know, when we're talking about a centimeter equaling 100 million years, drawing 1.8, I mean, it's so close to the top. We can't even do it. Maybe we'll just label it. We'll just say humans last 1.8 million years. Now, that's humans in a very primitive sense. Human civilization only goes back about 10,000 years. So this would be Native Americans, Vikings, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and all of the great civilizations that you've learned about in your social studies classes. We're only talking about the past 10,000 years in those cases. So that basically is a visual timeline of the history of the Earth. We have one end of the chart being the formation of the Earth, and then we follow it along. 90% of time is the Precambrian. We just know very little about it. And then we get to these last couple of inches up here, and this is where it's not necessarily that more happened, although that's probably the case. It's just we know about what happened. We have fossils, we have evidence. We have very little evidence from Precambrian time as to what was going on, and if there were any creatures, what they were doing. Here we have good fossil evidence. So everything that you really know about is in this last 10% or so. So I'm going to ask you to create your own timeline. If you were following along and doing it with me, that's fine. But what I'd like you to do is to submit a photograph of your finished timeline, and try to make sure that the picture is good enough where I can see your work, and also write your name on it too. Like that, somewhere. Okay, so anyway, finish that up, get a picture out to me, and that will be good. Thanks.